Welcome back to the review of week 4 of the NFL season. And we had a really good week last week with our 5 picks of the week. We went 3-1-1. I think we really should have went 4-1, to be honest. The one game that was a tie, I really couldn't believe that they couldn't cover that. And I'm about to get into those games, but still a really good week. We needed a positive week after the last two, where we were under 500 both weeks. So now our overall record is now up to 9-10-1. So again, almost right there at 500. Have another good week this week. Right over 500 again. So I feel confident. I felt confident in my picks last week, like I said. And when I get into it, it was the one pick. It was the London game. I guess I'll give that away. I felt like they should have covered that game. They didn't. Sucks, but there were some good games this week though. I think it was a good week in the NFL again. Definitely some matchups. I didn't think it was the most exciting matchup week. Again, I think it's kind of like 2 weeks in a row where like the matchups haven't been on paper super exciting and just like oh wow, there's like 4 or 5 like really good games on paper this week. I didn't really think that. I think the games were definitely better. Some of them were definitely better than maybe what we thought. There was a couple that stood out for sure. A couple games where it was a lot closer than you would have thought it would have been, or the team that probably should have lost at least going into the game ended up winning. So definitely a lot to talk about. I'll start with my 5 picks, and like I already said, I kind of talked about the first one a little bit, but Vikings Saints. I had -3 Minnesota. They won 29-26. So this was the push, obviously. That's why I'm 9-10-1. It's from this game. This was the London game. I was obviously at 9:30, so it's always, I guess it's always kind of good to have a game like that. It only happens a couple times a year, like 2 or 3 times. I think it's like 3 times a year. But there's actually another one this week with the Packers and the Giants. Maybe I'll do that for the next episode. Maybe I'll pick that one. I'm not sure yet. But this one, like, even if this wasn't the London game, I probably still would have chose it because of the injuries that the Saints had. They had no Jameis Winston, no Michael Thomas, and no Alvin Kamara, which happened. That was after I recorded and made the picks. I knew Thomas wasn't going to play, and I knew Winston wasn't going to play. I didn't know Kamara was not going to play. And I think it was either that morning or like late that night, the night before. Because again, they're in London, so they're 5 hours ahead. So I don't know if it was. I think it was that morning, like really in the morning, East Coast time. What in London it was whatever, like 12 o'clock or whatever it was, whatever time it was, that they confirmed he wasn't playing. I mean that obviously made it, should have been way easier to even cover that because they're missing their two best weapons and obviously their starting quarterback. And even though Jameis has had his struggles and he's obviously dealing with a lot of injuries, that's the reason why he obviously didn't play. It's still those are the starters, those are the guys who have been playing. So to be missing basically your 3 most important pieces on your offense, and you're in a London game where you have to travel. I think the Vikings came in on Thursday. I'm not exactly sure when the Saints came. I would assume Wednesday or Thursday. So you're really not getting practice time. Your body's adjusting. You're not, it's hard to go over game plans and in that time frame that they give you. So a lot of stuff that's going on, and the fact that the Vikings really never pulled away in this game. The Saints kept it close, and there was times where it seemed like the Vikings probably could have pulled away. Again, they have all their guys. There was really no excuse for them not to be able to. I mean, they put up 28 points, which is that should win you most games, and obviously it did. But the fact that the defense gave up 25 points to Andy Dalton, and some backups on that team. The offensive line for the Saints isn't amazing right now. They're dealing with some injuries and just not playing super well. Just surprised me. I think Minnesota has a good front four, especially with Danielle Hunter, obviously. So the fact that they really weren't putting pressure on Dalton like that much to where it was wrecking the game, and then obviously putting them back in second downs or even long third downs, it was just surprising to me. Again, they did win by 3, but it was just the fact that they couldn't win by more than that. I was confident in that game going in because I knew that Winston and Thomas weren't playing, and then when I learned that Kamara wasn't going to play, I thought that was a guaranteed win on that one. And I wish it was, because I would have went 4-1. It would have been a great week. We would have been 10-10. So definitely couldn't complain about that. Still can't complain about it because we're 3-1-1. But I just thought that one was a lock, to be honest, especially after the news of no Kamara. But The Saints lose, obviously. Vikings win. Next game was Bears Giants. Now this was my only loss of the week. It was definitely a stretch when I chose it. I kind of felt confident in it because I'd seen the Giants play the week before. Just never didn't do anything exciting to me. I mean, the only thing they had was the running game, and they can't throw the ball. They just lost Sterling Shepard too. Obviously, Jones isn't really looking to throw the ball that much, and when he does, it's not amazing. They don't have great wide receivers to get open, anyways. I just thought it was a good matchup for the Bears. They've been running the ball really well. Obviously, that's that's basically what they do. Fields throws the ball like 20 times a game, if that. So I thought that it could have been whoever won the trenches would have won this game, and it seemed to be the Giants. And what actually helped in that game was that Daniel Jones got injured, and then his backup, Tyrod Taylor, who's definitely not a bad backup, definitely a solid veteran backup to have. To have in the league, he's probably a top 5 backup in the league, I would say. He actually gets injured too. He gets a concussion. So they were both out of this game. It wasn't like early, but it definitely wasn't like right at the end. So I thought there was still maybe a chance. That score ended up being 20-12 Giants. So kind of played the way I thought it would, in that it was going to be low scoring. But I was just thinking that the Bears, with their running attack and what they've been doing recently, I thought the defense could step up and just, it's all on Saquon. If you could just stop him, that offense is going nowhere for the Giants. Couldn't do that. Saquon had a big game in this one. I think he had 130 rushing, 146 rushing. Again, he got 31 carries. I mean, that just shows you that they were going to run the ball the entire game. And Daniel Jones went 8 for 13, 71 yards. Again, he got injured in this one. But I just thought that whoever won those trenches would have won this game. I thought it was going to be the Bears. It was obviously the Giants. I mean, the Bears were +3 in this one, so they still could have covered if, they lost by a field goal. Couldn't make it happen. I don't even think they scored a touchdown. I think it was only field goals. Yeah, they scored 4 field goals. It's just tough with an offense like the Bears when you just can't throw the ball. And Fields actually wasn't terrible in this one. Obviously they were losing most of the game, so they were probably throwing it a little bit more. But he was 11 for 22, 174 yards. I mean, it doesn't sound great, but when you look at Justin Fields' career so far, it's not terrible because he doesn't throw the ball, and when he does, it's usually for 2 yards, 3 yards, a lot of incompletions. So I guess it wasn't a terrible game that way, but they can't score the ball, that team. The fact that they have 2 wins is ridiculous. I mean, if week 1 is a sunny day against the Niners, they lose that game, for sure. The fact that, I think they'll probably win 1, maybe 2 games the rest of the year. Maybe they catch someone, maybe they do play a good game. The defense steps up in one of these games, but I don't see how this team can win more than 4 games. I mean, again, the fact they're already at 2 is impressive enough. I would have probably penciled them in for 2 or 3 wins throughout the season, but the fact that they got 2 out of the first 4, 2 out of the first 3, really, it's hard to obviously not say they're not going to win a game the rest of the year. I guess it's possible, but the way they win games is obviously weather helps, but if their defense can play strong and then the running game, if they're rushing for over 150, 200 yards, they can win that game. But the defense would have to play super strong because they're not going to move the ball in the air. They just can't. But yeah, they lose 20-12. Giants move to 3-1. Again, not much to say. I think it's a 3-1. Again, they play 2 really bad teams in the Panthers and the Bears, both at home, by the way. Kind of barely beat those teams. It's not super impressive when you're playing 2 of the worst teams in the league and at home, and you're kind of barely beating them. You have the lead the game in the whole game, yeah, but it's not comfortable. You can't really move the ball anyways. You can't score touchdowns. You're kind of just hoping, and what played out in these 2 games is that the other team's offense is so bad that they kind of make mistakes by themselves, or they just can't score the ball either. So even though they're 3-1, I'm not impressed with them at all. And I saw them in person. It's not impressive. Against any team with a competent offense, as long as that team scores over 23 points, Giants can't win that game. And now with Jones and Tyrod Taylor, again, they're playing the London game, so I think they're already ruled out. Tyrod Taylor, I think, is definitely out with the concussion. Daniel Jones with the ankle injury, I'm pretty sure they said he's going to be out. I'd be surprised if he played. So playing the Packers anyways, that'd be a tough game even if Jones was playing. But with no Jones, no Taylor, that's probably like 100% a loss, I would say. Even though the Packers haven't looked amazing, they're still a better team than them for sure. And I'll talk about the Packers later actually, but yeah, it's that's gonna be a tough game. Especially again, a London game is almost like a Thursday night game to be honest, because you're traveling on Wednesday, Thursday, the time zone difference, not a lot of practice for guys, getting accustomed to just being there and playing there as well. So it's a whole different mindset, it's a whole different thing. You have to be really prepared for it. So maybe, but I'll be curious to see what that line is in the next video. I'll probably mention it. Maybe I pick it. Like I said, I don't know. But depending on what the line is, but it's I'd be surprised if the Giants won that game. But those are my first two games, so I guess I'm 0-1-1. But these next three are all wins. So Seahawks, Lions. This turned out to be a crazy game, to be honest. I mean, the final score was 48-45 in this game, which I don't think. I mean, the Lions' defense is really bad, but 48 points in a game to the Seahawks. I mean, with Geno Smith at quarterback, I mean, that's kind of crazy. That's really crazy, to be honest. And then even the Seahawks giving up 45 points. And that was the Lions without DeAndre Swift, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and even DJ Chark wasn't playing this game. So the top two receiving threats and obviously the best running back in that backfield. Jamal Williams is good, but he's obviously better when he's a 1-2 tandem with Swift. So to be missing for sure your two best offensive players and then Chark's your second best receiver, and it still put up 45 points. That's impressive. Like I am impressed with how the Lions play. They do score a lot of points. It's just the defense is terrible. They give up 30 plus points every single game. I think the Lions are averaging. They're for sure top 5 in the league in scoring. I think they're averaging like 28 points a game, 30 points a game. So like they can put up points. That's not the problem for them. And again, they showed it without their best players on offense in this game that they can put up points. It's it's not offensive play calling. It's nothing like that. It's all in the defense for this team. It's just they have no pass rush and their secondary is terrible. So that obviously has to be fixed for them. I mean, they're 1-3 and they could even be 2-2. Like they could be a lot better. They are playing better. It's just the defense obviously has to be better. But this final score, like I said, was 48-45. The Seahawks were plus 3.5. When I made the pick, I knew Swift wasn't playing, and I think at that point I knew Amon-Ra St. Brown wasn't playing, even if it wasn't confirmed that he wasn't playing. He hadn't practiced. He was trending towards not playing, so I think I kind of just assumed, but it might have been confirmed anyways. But yeah, that seemed like an easy pick. I mean, obviously I didn't think it to be 48-45 in this game. I thought it'd be in the 20s, but definitely not this high. But this was actually, again, two bad teams playing, but it was an exciting game. Back and forth, touchdowns. I mean, touchdown. As soon as every team got the ball, it was a touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. So the Seahawks actually, it was really the running game that was very key in this game. I mean, Goff threw for 378, but again, they were losing the entire game. But even still, on the ground, Jamal Williams had 108 yards on 19 carries. Rashad Penny had 151 yards on 17 carries. Geno Smith threw for 320. Like, even though the passing numbers do look great, and there were a lot of big plays in this one. TJ Hawkinson had like an 80-yard catch or something. There's a lot of like 20, 30, 40-yard plays in this one, but it was really the running game. And more so for the Seahawks, there was a lot of third downs. I think there was 2 or 3 third downs where the Seahawks not only converted those, but they actually turned them into big runs and or touchdowns on those plays. So that's a huge gut punch. It's third down, you get a stop. They're rather maybe punting, they're maybe kicking a field goal, depending, because again, they were long runs. These were like 30, 40-yard runs. So, but potentially you could be even getting the ball back, or if anything, giving up 3 points. And then instead, it's a first down, and not only a first down, it's a huge chunk play, or it's just a touchdown. And obviously, you're giving up 7 points. So, I kind of have to be impressed with the Seahawks now they're playing. They're 2-2. The 2 weeks 2 and 3 weren't super impressive with the way that they played, but and again, the Lions defense is definitely the worst in the league, but the offense can move the ball. I think Geno Smith's actually doing not a bad job. The offensive line's not been terrible for them. Charles Cross, the first round pick for them, who I was high on, he's been really good. He's been really good for them, to be honest. So at left tackle, that's a really good position for him to be at. Smith's moving really well. He's running the ball a lot. He's throwing the ball pretty well. I mean, he was 23 of 30. That's pretty impressive to be 23 of 30 for 320. And obviously it's Metcalf and Lockett, but that those are pretty good numbers for someone like him who obviously hasn't really played a lot these last couple years. Knows the offense for sure. I mean, he's been the backup for a couple years there. But he's been in the league 10 years and he's been running the ball pretty well. I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with how he's playing. If you look stat for stat, he's playing better than Russell Wilson. I don't obviously is he better than Russell Wilson? No, but is he playing better than him right now? Yes, he is. Through the first 4 games of the season, Geno Smith is playing better than Russell Wilson. But yeah, this one was another. This was my first win of the week, I guess. 48-45, like I said. Fourth game, Cardinals Panthers. It was plus 1.5 Arizona. I said Arizona was going to win this game, and they did. Again, another one where I was kind of surprised at why they were plus 1.5. I know they're on the road, but even though I'm not a big fan of the Cardinals, they're better than the Panthers are. That's not a question. There was uncertainty if Christian McCaffrey was going to play this game. It was up until warm-ups if he was going to play or not. He did play. I'm not sure he really did much. Yeah, 8 carries, 27 yards. He didn't really do a lot in this one. He probably wasn't fully healthy, to be honest. This wasn't like a super great game to watch. It was 26-16 Arizona. Again, the Panthers just aren't a good team. Their defense, I guess, is okay. They definitely have guys on their defense who can make plays, and it's definitely not bad, but the offense just doesn't click. And, you have DJ Moore and you have Christian McCaffrey. If you probably should be putting up more points than 16. They really, throughout the first 4 games of the season, Panthers have scored 24, 16, 22, and 20 and 16. You'd think they'd probably be able to score some more points. Just give the ball to McCaffrey. DJ Moore has really done nothing this year. You got to give him the ball. Just get him the ball, make him make a play, get confidence going, get that rapport and the connection between him and Mayfield. I think that would work a lot better for the future. It's, they're 1-3 right now. I think Matt Rule will be fired probably in a couple weeks. If they don't win a game for a couple weeks, he'll be fired. There's no way you can continue to be the coach with a team that, they try to make them have expectations, but at the same time, you have to kind of have realistic expectations where this team just isn't a great team, but, the fall guy's always going to be the head coach. And you have a new quarterback. You had a new quarterback last year, a new one this year. You got to make something work. It's obviously not the best options in Sam Darnold last year and Baker Mayfield this year, but Baker's not a terrible quarterback. He hasn't played great, but at the same time, I think if you have the right offensive plan and you have everything working well and it's a cohesive unit, then I think he's not terrible. He can definitely win you games. And this defense, like I said, it's good enough to where it can keep you in games. The points that they haven't let up more than, I think, 26 points in a game. So they can keep you in a game. It's not that hard to ask an offense to score 26 points. It really isn't, especially with the guys that they have on their team. It shouldn't be that hard. So if I'll look at the remaining schedule, but if they don't win a couple games coming soon, he's got to go halfway through the season. It's been a couple years already. He's been on the hot seat anyways. It's something he's got to give. Their schedule coming up is pretty tough. Niners, Rams, Bucks. If you lose all 3 of those games, which they most likely will, they'll be 1-6. That's tough. You can't really keep him at that point. I know that's a tough 3-game stretch right there, but you got to play your schedule as it is, and that's the way that it falls right now. So I don't think you could. I don't think you could keep him at that point, and I think it's probably for the best. I think next year you go in. I don't know if Baker's still the quarterback there. I don't know. You probably hope that you're top 3 in the draft because that guarantees you to get one of the quarterbacks next year. Which would be huge for them because they need a quarterback like that, a Bryce Young or a C.J. Stroud in that top 3. So if it's probably not the worst thing to be one of the worst teams in the league this year. The talent says they shouldn't be, but I think there's just something wrong with that team. There's just not, there's not a lot of good juju on that team. So I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't. Will they be 2-3 wins this year? I don't think so, but I think 4 wins probably gets you a top 3 pick. Maybe not. I'm not sure. Texans haven't won a game yet. There's a couple teams with 1 win, but it might. We'll see though. But yeah, that was obviously one that covered. Not much to talk about Arizona's side. They get Hopkins back. He's serving the 6-game suspension, so he'll be back for game number 7. I think they have a bye actually, but but he'll be back in a couple weeks. I think they're playing better. I mean, they're 2-2. I still don't love them this year. I still think they'll finish. Well, I guess Seattle's in that division. It'll be close maybe to see who finishes last. I mean, Arizona's more talented, but again, there's some. I mean, they always start off hot and end off cold, and they're starting off cold. So what's that really going to mean for the rest of the year? I feel like it's probably going to do the same thing it's done the last 3 or 4 years. But I guess we'll see. But that was my second win, and then last one, Chiefs Bucks. I had Kansas City +1. I mean, this seemed like I think I said this was my most confident game. Getting Chiefs +1 here. I mean, they're on the road, Sunday Night Football. It doesn't matter. They're much better than the Bucks. The Bucks actually were, they at least showed me something offensively. They scored 31 points, but the Chiefs scored 41. They already had like 2 touchdowns in the first like 6 minutes. With 4 minutes left in the first quarter, it was already 14-3. It was 21-3 with 11 minutes, 26 seconds left in the second quarter. So the defense for the Bucks did not stand up at all. That's obviously their best part of their team. They did nothing in this game. Mahomes had a really good game, 250, 3 touchdowns. He did have an interception, but still played a really good game. Brady at least had a good game. I mean, 385 and 3 touchdowns, no picks. They were really they ran the ball, I think, 7 times in this game, or 8 times. So they knew they were going to abandon the run. Obviously they were losing, so that's why, but it just seemed like a game where you're probably just throwing the whole time anyways. You can expose that Chiefs secondary a little bit. Their full receiver core in this one with Evans back from the suspension. Godwin was playing and Julio Jones was playing, so it seemed like an opportunity to just expose them through the air. They did, but the defense didn't stand up for them, which has been the case. The first couple weeks, the defense has stood up for them, and the offense hasn't been scoring. But this one was reversed. The Chiefs are the better team, anyways. I don't think the Bucks have definitely been disappointing. The Chiefs definitely are. They're showing everyone that they really are one of the better teams in the AFC. There's really no reason for them not to be counted as one. I think it's obviously the Bills. But then I think it's the Chiefs, it's the Ravens, it's the Chargers when they're healthy. Again, they're dealing with a lot of injuries, but I think it's really those teams as being the top teams. There's a couple other teams obviously, but the Chiefs definitely deserve to be on that list. There's no reason that they don't. This just proved it again on Sunday Night Football. And again, losing Tyreek, it hurts for sure. Yeah, obviously he's a top 5 receiver in the league, but they're just fine without him. Juju's been really good for them. Kelsey's obviously just doing what Kelsey does. He's probably gonna be even better because there's no Tyreek, which sounds crazy because you could probably just double Kelsey, but you really can't double him. He went 9 for 92 and a touchdown in this one. He's gonna do that every single game. It's like that's just his average, to be honest. If he doesn't score a touchdown, he'll go 8 yards for 120 yards. And that's just what he does. So they're on their way to, again, maybe winning that division. Chargers are 2-2, but they obviously lost to the Chiefs. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. But again, the Chargers aren't healthy, so with them missing, their Bosa's out for extended period of time. Slater's out for the season. Herbert, even though he's playing, he's not healthy. Keenan Allen's missed time. He may play this week. He might not. Hasn't been confirmed yet. So I want to see when they're healthy. They do play the Chiefs and the Chargers do play later down the road, the week before Thanksgiving. So by that time, you would assume they'll be fully healthy. I don't think Bosa would be back at that time. Seems like he's probably going to come back later than that. Maybe he comes back there, but he tore his, I think it was his groin that he tore, or his quad, whatever it was. I think it was his groin. So he might even come back to the season. That's not, nothing's been said yet, but if he does, I think it'll be later than that game. But that game is in LA, so it is a home game for them there, but we'll see what happens. But those are my 5 games. Like I said, it went 3-1-1. Good week, solid week, no doubt about it. Some other games I wanted to touch on: Bills, Ravens. Another choke job for the Ravens, up 20-3 in this game, and they lost 23-20. I don't know if that's credit Bills or blame Ravens in this one. I think it's blame Ravens. I mean, to not score a point, and they were up 20-3 in the first half. With 3:39 left in the second quarter, it was 20-3. That means you didn't score a point the rest of the game. For an offense like that with Lamar and J.K. Dobbins had a good game in this one. Like, the offensive line, Mark Andrews, there's really no reason for them to get shut out in the half, and that's exactly what happened. And I know the Bills' defense is good. They're still missing a couple of guys on that team, but just to not be able to do anything, and then obviously lose that game 23-20, that would have been a big win. You're 3-1. The Bills would have back-to-back losses actually, by losing to the Dolphins and then the Ravens. That could be a big game potentially for number one seeding. If the Ravens win, they're 3-1. You already have the win over the Bills. If you end up tied with them, you win that tiebreaker. I mean, that's a huge game right there. 'Cause, I think the Ravens are for sure in play for that number one seed. It will probably be the Bills, but the Ravens are in play. But the two losses they've had have both been chokes. The Dolphins game at home, Bills game at home. So usually a really good home team. Not so far this season. They're still 2-2, but the Bengals are now 2-2. They're kind of finding their stride a little bit, so that could be, that could be some worrisome a little bit. They play each other this week, Sunday Night Football, so that's going to be a huge game. Whoever wins that game, I'm not going to say wins the division right now, but yeah, that's a big game in Week 5. Ravens are home, so I guess you have to look forward to that. But I think both teams, I think the Bengals, like I said, they're finding their stride. I think they're finally back into maybe not full groove yet, but I think they're very, very close. And the Ravens, they've been playing well through the first 4 weeks. It's just these, second half collapses that they've had against the Dolphins and the Bills is what has them at 2-2. They could be 4-0 right now. Really, they could be. At least 3-1. But that'll be a big game this week, Sunday Night Football. The Bills, I mean, like we all know, they're the best team in football. Even though they didn't play great in this game, again, they were down 20-3, but and they really weren't even passing the ball. Allen was only 213, 19 of 36 against arguably the worst secondary in the league. It was really running the ball where they were winning that game. The last touchdown to tie the game was a Josh Allen touchdown. He had 70 yards on the ground, so it wasn't really through the air like they usually are, with an explosive attack with Allen and Diggs and Gabe Davis, but more so on the ground, which I don't think is a bad thing because, they're not the best running team. Allen's obviously a great running the ball, but, Singletary's, he's okay, but he doesn't get a lot of touches, to be honest. But even when he does, he's not amazing with them. But if they can be not more of a running team, but at least show that aspect of the offense off, I think it's going to be huge for them in the playoffs. Because the regular season, you could win games throwing the ball as many times or doing whatever you want. But in the playoffs, you really need to run the ball. It wears teams down. You could win the offensive line. You could do play action off that. It's just you're more unpredictable. You could do different things with your offense. It gets the defense way on its heels if you could effectively run the ball, design runs, not just scrambles with Allen. So I think when it comes playoff time, that's going to be the biggest key for them in the run game. Now it doesn't really matter. It's whatever. It's not going to do anything right now, but. It was at least encouraging to see that they were able to do that against a Ravens team who, like I said, the passing defense isn't great, but the run defense is pretty good. So to be able to do that against them in a game like this was, like I said, pretty impressive. Next game I wanted to talk about was Patriots-Packers. Packers win 27-24. I was thinking about picking this game in my 5 picks. And I'm not sure exactly what the line was. I guess I could check it, but I would assume it was, again, Mac Jones wasn't playing this game. All right, the line was 9.5, so that's probably why I didn't choose it, because I didn't think the Packers could beat them actually by 10 points, which obviously they didn't, even without Mac Jones. But, when Mac Jones wasn't playing, Packers at home, 425 game, this should have been an easy win. The backup quarterback for the Patriots is Brian Hoyer. He actually got concussed in this one very early on. I think it was first quarter he got concussed. So they were going with Taylor Zeppi as their, or Zappy, or whatever, Bailey Zapp as their quarterback the rest of the way. He actually didn't do a bad job. He went 10 of 15, 99 yards and a touchdown. Really not that bad. I mean, they relied a lot on the running game. I think the Patriots played a little conservative towards the end when the game was close. I thought, they probably should have let him throw the ball a little bit more. This game went to OT, and that's how the Packers won. But I thought they should have let him throw the ball a little bit. Try and lead a drive down the field to potentially take the lead in that game. Late in those closing stages of the game, they really didn't. They decided to play conservative, kind of just take it to OT, take a chance there. Packers got the ball, had to punt. Patriots got it, had to punt, and then after that, the Packers did put a drive together, got the game-winning field goal. But the fact that the Packers had to go to OT at home against a third-string guy who's never played in the NFL is a little bit concerning, definitely, especially when this offense, I mean, I guess they scored 27 points in this one, but they really aren't scoring that much. They rely a lot on the running game, which was good in this one. I mean, Aaron Jones, 16 carries, 110 yards, but Rodgers still doesn't look amazing. This was probably one of his better games, I guess. 251, 2 touchdowns, but he did have a pick six as well. I'm still not, I'm not really sure where I am on the Packers. Will they win that division? Most likely. I don't see the Vikings as really competing with them in that division. I think it could be close. It's not like the Packers will win 13 games this year, but I think they'll probably win 11 or 12, but I think that should be able to win this division. Again, with the Vikings being the next best team, but the offense just really isn't clicking. Just not. And again, I know they've allowed young guys on the outside, and the offensive line's getting healthier with Bakhtiari now playing 2 straight weeks. But I'm not really sure where to put them in terms of the NFC rankings. Obviously with them winning division, it's going to help, but I'm not really sure where to put them yet. In terms of the Patriots, though, Mac Jones is going to be out for a couple weeks. I mean, he had a high ankle sprain. That's usually like 2 to 4 weeks, and maybe even another week or two. So he's going to be out the next couple of games. I think I said this a couple weeks ago, but I think this is going to be one of the worst teams in the AFC, and that was with Mac Jones playing. And it's not really his fault. I think the coaching staff failed him in terms of, Matt Patricia's calling plays for them. He's a defensive coordinator his entire career. Now he's calling offensive plays. Steve Belichick's calling defensive plays. Still he's not that good of a defensive coordinator. The talent on this team isn't amazing. The offensive weapons really aren't there. The biggest part of this team is the running game, which they're good at, but they're just not that good of a team overall. So with them being 1-3, Mac Jones now being out for a couple weeks, I mean, come on. How many games is this team going to win? I mean, it's got to be like 4 or 5, I would say. Maybe 5 or 6. They are the Patriots. They can win games that you wouldn't expect them to. So maybe they get 5 or 6, but this just isn't a good team. It's one of the worst teams in the AFC, no doubt. And again, I think that's the coaching staff that failed this team. I think you see all the stuff in the offseason that was going on, all those weird things that were happening. Who knows who's calling plays, who's coming in, who's coming out. Just when all that stuff's going on, and usually that's not a New England type thing with all this weird controversy type stories that are coming out and just weird stuff that you hear in these reports, that's usually not a Patriot thing. Then something's not going to go right that season. And like I said, they're 1-3 so far, and I really don't see them winning many more games. I think the Jets will probably win more games than them, which I don't think is super surprising, to be honest, but maybe people hearing that will be surprised just between Jets, Patriots. Obviously, the Patriots are better, but no, I don't think that's really the case. I think the Jets, I think they're a little bit better, and I think they're a little bit more explosive. I think that they can win games more than the Patriots can. And actually talking about the Jets, so probably the last game I talk about, but Jets beat the Steelers 24-20. Zach Wilson made his debut. He looked pretty good in this one. Tough road game against the Steelers. Even though the Steelers haven't looked amazing so far this season, it's still a tough game to go to. Heinz Field, I guess it's Acrisure Field or whatever it's called now, but Heinz Field. And go win a game there. We saw the introduction of Kenny Pickett in this game. Didn't look amazing, but he threw 3 picks. But he went 10 of 13, and the 3 incompletions were 3 picks. One was a Hail Mary at the end of the game. That's whatever. It's not a real pick. His first pass he ever threw was a pick. It was definitely not a bad deep ball to Chase Claypool. I mean, Chase Claypool's like 6'4", and the guy who was defending him was like 5'9". The fact that he couldn't go up and make a play on that was pretty surprising. It got tipped in the air and then it got picked. The other one, I can't exactly remember what it was, but he didn't look terrible, but you just see 3 picks and you think it's not that great of a game. But I thought they'd make this change a little bit later in the season. I thought Trubisky would be better, just wasn't the case. I don't know exactly why. I thought he wasn't terrible in Chicago. I think coaching just wasn't great for him there. When he went to Buffalo last year, he sat behind Josh Allen, learned that system, learned how to be, he's obviously not Josh Allen, but they kind of have similar play styles in terms of that they're mobile. Allen obviously has a better arm, but Trubisky's arm isn't terrible, but they're definitely mobile guys who can make plays on their own. And I just thought that Trubisky could kind of do good in this offense with Deontay Johnson. I mean, Chase Claypool is there, Najee Harris. The offensive line's not good on this team. I think that definitely played into it, is that don't have a lot of time on, when you're a quarterback on that team, which I thought would help because, not help, but at least Trubisky could at least weather that storm because he is a mobile guy and he can escape and scramble and make plays. But it just didn't happen. He got benched, like I said. Pickett's in. He's already confirmed as a starter for the next game, where they play the Bills. So that's not that's gonna be a tough game. That's probably a loss. Definitely a loss. But with the Steelers already 1-3, T.J. Watt's he's not out for the year, but I mean, we'll see what even happens. If they just lose the rest of their games until T.J. Watt comes back, I mean, obviously he'll play, but how much are you really willing to have him play when you're like 1-7, 1-8? It's probably not amazing, but this is definitely. I didn't think they'd be this bad. I thought Trubisky could at least keep them around 500, and then if they wanted to make the change to Pickett, which they probably were going to do anyways, they would do it, and they'd be somewhere around 500. They wouldn't be over. They probably wouldn't be 500, but 7-10. I thought 7-10 was a realistic goal for this team, and if they outperformed, if Trubisky played really well or Pickett played really well, they can maybe go 8-9, maybe even 9-8. But that doesn't seem to be the case with the injuries that they do have and the uncertainty at quarterback and the terrible offensive line play that they've had. I think they'll be kind of with the Patriots, where again they're still a tough team, they're still a hard team. You see the Patriots coming in, they still have guys on that team. They could still win a couple games, but they'll probably be in that 5-6 win category, I would say. Maybe 4, who knows? But that their season's probably over. If they had any chance at maybe a wild card in the tough AFC, that's probably dead by now. Jets 2-2. I think you have to feel good. I think that this team, if Wilson can play well and the receivers that they have been doing well. The defense hasn't been amazing, but it's also not been awful, at least so far. So I think that they can definitely, they can stay around 500. I think they'll probably be what the Steelers are. I think 7-10 is a really good season for them, to be honest. I think even 6 wins, I know Jets fans wouldn't be happy with 6 wins, but I think that's good improvement. But I think they could really go 7-10. I think that they could. I think this defense is going to get better as the season goes on. A little bit better, not crazy, but and then you're hoping that Wilson turns into better decision maker, can make more passes. We'll see how the knee is in terms of him moving around the pocket, but I think you have to feel pretty good about how they've played so far. And again, that was without Wilson, that was with Flacco, so you can't really take a lot from it. But now with Wilson now being the starter the rest of the season, let's see how they play. Let's see how they look. I think you'll be excited. Some games will look bad, but other games will look good. You'll be excited. You'll be like, wow, this is what this team can look like in the future. That's going to be good. So those are the games I wanted to talk about. There's a couple other ones that happened, but those are kind of the bigger ones I wanted to mention. We'll look forward to week 5. That'll be the next episode. I'll make my 5 picks. We'll talk about some good matchups in that one. I am recording this on Thursday, so I'll just mention the Thursday night game is Colts-Broncos. That'll be an interesting game. I won't say it's going to be a good game because I think both teams have been severely underperforming, especially the Colts. Jonathan Taylor is not playing in this game. Javonte Williams tore his ACL last week, so arguably the 2 best players aren't even going to play in this one. So it will be, I think, like a gritty game, but it won't be like an exciting game. But we'll see how it goes. Denver's -3. They're the home team, so basically even. But this week definitely has some good games in it. There's definitely better games in this one, and we'll talk about it in the next episode. So I'll see you then. That'll be out in a couple days. I'll make my 5 picks, and we'll talk about what should be a good week 5. So thanks for listening.